Are you a ballistic main looking to see what guns are best to go in your third slot, aka your sling? Well, this video is going to cover exactly that. We are going to use this tier list you are seeing right here, and we are going to rank every gun from best to worst gun to put in your sling. So, without wasting any more time, let's get into it. Alright, so, if you guys want some credentials, if you are new to this channel, I am the #1 Ballistic on PC. I have 50,000 kills on Ballistic. I've been playing him since day one. I've got now a year of experience, over 25,000 hours of experience on him. Now, this is also going to have an element of personal preference. There are going to be some guns that I don't personally use that I will rank higher on the list because I know they're good, but I don't personally use them, and I will explain that, and I will explain why as well. And also, as you can see down here on the bottom, some guns are in red because this is an old tier list. Some guns are in red because they were care package weapons when this came out. I believe this is from season 16. But all the other tier lists don't have as colourful or vibrant graphics for the guns. So I'll just tell you if it's a care package weapon or not anymore. And then we'll get straight into it. So the first one is actually the Havoc. Now, if you're a long time viewer of the channel, you know it's going in. This is currently going out in Season 21. This is a Season 21 tier list, and the Havoc is very meta at the minute. When I did my last tier list a couple months ago, the Havoc wasn't really meta, but it was still as strong as it is now. Everyone's just kind of clocked on. So if you're a Ballistic main, absolutely utilize the Havoc because it's probably going to get nerfed, sadly. As much as I love this gun, it's probably going to get nerfed, but Ballistic mains will always be able to use the weapon meta to their advantage, so there will be something to take its place next season. But right now, the Havoc is by far the best gun to put in your sling. So we're actually starting off with the #1 gun. The next is the Nemesis. Now, I said this in my last video as well, my last tier list. If the Nemesis came fully charged, it would probably be A or S tier, but because it isn't, it's gonna go in B tier because it's not bad, because a gold Nemesis is still really strong, but it doesn't get like a great deal extra by being all gold in the sling. So that's why I'm personally going to be putting it in B tier. Next is the Vault, and I'm going to put that in A tier purely because SMGs this season aren't really too great. I'm not really using a lot of them, truth be told, but some of the SMGs in the sling can still be very reliable, and I would say the Vault is probably one of the most reliable guns to put in the sling if you're looking for an SMG to put in there. It's not the most reliable, you'll find out which one that is later, but it is one of, so I'm going to put that in A tier. Now, Devotion, I'm just going to put straight away into D tier because it is currently a care package weapon, but when it's not a care package weapon, it's probably in S tier. It's probably S tier, it's probably like a top 5 gun for me in the sling, but that doesn't really matter in Season 21 because it's simply not there. Now, the L-Star is actually a very interesting one. I'm going to put this above the Vault if I can. There we go. Because the L-Star, while the animation when the L-Star burns out isn't fast, which I actually thought it would be because it's in my sling, and I know it's not a reload animation, you're sort of taking the overheat module out, but it's the equivalent. So I kind of feel like Ballistic should have that buff applied to it, but even without that, the L-Star is such a strong gun. It's such a strong LMG, and along with the movement buffs and the fact that you have infinite ammo with an L-Star, as long as you're conscious of it overheating, it can absolutely shred, and it's been one of my most used guns this season. Due to the fact that it doesn't get an incredible amount of buffs and the fact that it doesn't have the fast reload is why I'm putting it in A tier, because it's still incredibly powerful, but it's not quite up there in the S tier category. And also, what I am also taking into account, and I'm going to keep mentioning it as we go along, is the fact that I will also be talking about the Slingshot perk. If you guys don't know, the Slingshot perk upgrades your sling weapon as your armor upgrades. So if you have a blue armor, your sling gun will have all blue attachments. If you have purple armor, your sling gun will have all purple attachments. And the L-Star and the Vault and the Havoc are all incredible guns as well to have when you have the Slingshot perk. And so is the Nemesis, don't get me wrong, but those 3 guns are incredible. The triple take, I'm putting that into C tier. C tier is probably going to be the worst tier. D tier is going to be reserved for the care package weapons. I think that's only fair. It's just simply not a gun that I think goes well with Ballistic. Obviously, it is a good gun. It can kind of be a shotgun and sniper. Some people might like it, but I personally do not think it's worth putting in the sling. Now, the flatline, I'm actually going to also put in A tier because I've been experimenting using more ARs in the sling, and I actually think the flatline is really good in the sling. it doesn't have incredible buffs. So a flatline is a super strong gun. It can be good close range, and it can be good to medium range, which is where Ballistic shines in those two ranges, depending on what guns you're running in the Sling. And I think the flatline, the golden flatline, is just, like, it's a fundamentally good gun, and if you have the slingshot perk as well, having a purple flatline in your third slot all the time is incredibly handy, so I think that is a good choice to have as well, because you'll always get a 2x on it, and I personally think the 2x flatline is better than any other sight you can have on the flatline. So again, this is personal preference, but I think the flatline is A tier. It's definitely worth running. I am making a video on it as we speak, but I'm currently experimenting using 2 SMGs in my first and second slot, and then having a assault rifle in my third slot, and the flatline and Havoc are two of the go-to guns for that strat. So if you're a Ballistic main, you could try that out as well. Now, the car SMG will surprise some of you. It's going in B tier. It's going to go above the Nemesis, but the car SMG, like other SMGs, just got nerfed a bit too much, and as much as I love using it, you'll see me using it quite a bit, it's just not my go-to sling gun. If I find any gun remotely a little bit better, this car is getting replaced. I don't really like having the car in the Sling, because SMGs this season are just simply not as good. So yeah, I'm putting the car in B tier. The Prowler is also going to go into B tier, purely because the Prowler is a good SMG, but I just don't find it to be the best gun to put in the Sling personally. There's not really any specific reason, it's just SMGs in general aren't the greatest for the Sling unless it's the Volt. Now, the Rampage is the next S tier gun, because as some of you may know, the Rampage comes fully charged. If you didn't know, the Rampage, you can put a thermite in it, which increases the fire rate and allows you to break down doors. It becomes an absolute turret of a gun, and when you ult with Ballistic, the Rampage comes fully charged, and it's really good to bait people towards doors and then break it on them using the Rampage. And the Rampage in general, when it's charged, is incredible to use. When it's not charged, it's okay. It's a good LMG. I was at times thinking about putting it in A tier, because when using it with the slingshot perk, I don't get the most use out of it, but it's still fundamentally a really good sling gun, so it's going to keep its spot in S tier. The 30-30 is just going straight into C tier. Again, it doesn't really fit with Ballistic's playstyle. It does come with Skull Piercer when you have it in your ult, and you will obviously get a good sight to use it from. So if you're more of a long range player, that could be something to consider, but for me, an aggressive Ballistic player, it doesn't really work. Next is the R301, and it's also going to go in A tier, because it's just another assault rifle that is just really good with the slingshot perk, and then when it's all gold, when you're in that ult form, the hipfire on the R3 actually got a buff recently, so it's actually really good close range now, and it's always going to be good medium range as well. So R3, actually, I'm going to move it above the flatline. The alternator is going in S tier. It's just such a good gun. If you didn't know, it comes with disruptor rounds, which does increase damage to shields, and also the alternator in general is probably one of, if not the, I don't know if that's a hot take, best SMG in the game right now. And the fact that it comes with disruptor just makes it a really good pick for Ballistic. Even without the digi threat that it used to come with, it's still an absolute beast. I highly recommend it, and in fact, it's going over the Rampage. I think I enjoy using the alternator way more than the Rampage. Now, this one actually pains me, because the R9 just simply isn't as good, and I'm a mouse and keyboard player, so for people that are maybe on controller or just simply better than the gun than me, they might rank it higher, and that's completely okay. I'm putting it in C tier. It's going to probably be the top of C tier, but it's just not as good, unfortunately. It got nerfed to the ground, which pains me. It used to be one of my most used guns, and it's now in C tier, which breaks my heart. Next is the P20. Now, I don't really use the P20 in the Sling. It's a good sling weapon because it comes with hammer points, which does increase damage to flesh, but I don't really use it too often, so I'm going to put it in B tier. I'm going to put it one of the top guns in B tier, because it is good, but it is a P20. It does have a fast fire rate. It can be incredibly good to do that extra flesh damage with, but I just personally get more use out of the other guns over the P20. I don't have the most confidence with it, so it's not the worst, but it's about in the middle. Now, next is the flatline. Now, I'm going to put the flatline, I was initially thinking S tier, but it's actually going to go second in A tier, because I find the flatline is one of the best guns to pick up off drop, because if you can get into the habit of Ballistic, because your guns will always come with white attachments when you first drop into Apex, your first gun, if you put it in the Sling, it will have all white attachments. The Spitfire comes with, I believe, a 40 round mag in the Sling if you put it straight in there with all white attachments, and then the fact you get a 1x HCOG, which completely gets rid of the bad iron sight on the Spitfire. It's actually really good off spawn, and then as you use the slingshot, it just continues to get better. It's an absolute turret. And then in the sling, being able to reload and run with an LMG the way you can with Ballistic Sling is just really good. It's definitely not as good as some of the guns above it, but it is definitely one of the top tier guns, and it's one that I don't see many people using. So if you're looking for a more unique gun to use in your sling, use the Spitfire. Beware the hipfire isn't the greatest. You're going to have to do some learning on how to adapt with the hipfire, but it is still a really good gun that I've been using quite a bit over the last 2 seasons. Next is the G7 Scout, and that's going to be of no surprise to any of you. It is going in C tier because it just doesn't fit Ballistic's playstyle. And then we have the Kraber and the Bocek, which are both going to go in D tier because they are care package weapons. They're not going to come out of the care package, so there's no real need to cover them whatsoever. The Hemlock is actually going to go into B tier because it's more of a gun to put in your primary and secondary slot. It doesn't really get too much out of being buffed. Don't get me wrong, it's one of the best ARs in the game right now, but it just really isn't a good sling gun. The RE45, and that is not a care package weapon this season. It is back on the ground, and it also comes with hammer points, which means it does increase flesh damage. If you can have a disruptor alternator and then an RE in the sling or the other way around, it's an absolutely lethal combo because you have 2 attachments that do damage to shield and flesh. It's really good. The RE is probably one of my most used sling guns this season. It could actually be over the alternator, just because it has a hammer points which does more flesh damage, and it is just a really good choice because it's a really good gun to push up with, because it's actually a really good pistol gun. People really overlook the RE, but the fact that it comes with all ballistics buffs and hammer points just makes it incredibly good to push up with. Like, if you've got an enemy flesh or near flesh, you push up with the RE, you're gonna win that fight. It is just a really solid gun. Next is the Wingman. Now the Wingman honestly is probably gonna go B tier. It's probably gonna go below the Hemlock because it now no longer has a mag. It does come, I think, with boosted loader, but I don't even think it has skull piercer anymore. I could be wrong about that. It used to be a better sling gun. It used to be about an A tier sling gun when it had a mag and it had skull piercer, but now it's just really not that good. It's a good gun. It's still one of my favorite guns to use, but just not in the sling. Charge rifle and longbow are just going in C tier because it just does not fit Ballistic's playstyle whatsoever. However, the Sentinel, I'm actually going to put at one of the top guns in B tier. We're going to put it second to top in B tier because it comes charged just like the Rampage does, which makes it absolutely fun to use. So it's one of those guns that you can use longer range and medium range and close range if you're a bit of a stylist, if you like to style on people. It's definitely a fun gun to use. It doesn't mean it's the most practical. If you're looking for practical guns, I would pay attention to everything above. But if you're looking to get some style points, you want to have a bit of fun, Sentinel could be a good choice because it comes charged. The Eva A is currently a care package weapon. The Mastiff, now this is actually a tricky one. The Mastiff, I don't really use too many shotguns in my sling, so I'm going to put the Mastiff probably the bottom of B tier, purely because it's not bad, because a gold bolt Mastiff is really good, but the issue with shotguns being gold is they don't automatically reload. You have to slide for them to reload, which is a little bit annoying, but a gold bolt Mastiff as a gun itself is really good, and if you use it with a slingshot perk, a purple bolt Mastiff is a good gun to push up with anyway. So I'm going to put it in B tier. I'm probably going to put it actually above, yeah, I'm going to put it above the Prowler and put the Car for a bit further down, because it is a fundamentally good gun, good with slingshot perk, but it's just, I just would prefer to use a lot of other guns. I'm not a big shotgun user in the slings. The Mozam is actually going to go, a lot of people might hate me for this, but it's just going to go the top of A tier. I don't personally use it. This is one of the guns I was talking about before that I don't really use. It's got hammer points on it, and it does absolutely shred that close range. It's probably up there with the RE. However, the reason it's in A tier is this is my personal preference affecting the tier list. It's just not one of my go-tos. I prefer a lot of other guns. Honestly, I probably prefer the L-Star and the Volt over the Mozambique, not because the Mozambique is a bad gun, just because I'm more used to spray weapons. I much prefer spray weapons. However, there are times that it does absolutely shred when I do use it, so I'm going to put it at the top of A tier, because I know the majority of ballistic mids will probably scream at me if I put it any lower. They probably want it in S tier, truth be told, so I probably should do that, but I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to put it in A tier. And next is the Peacekeeper, and I'm going to put the Peacekeeper in A tier as well, because it comes with Disruptor. It's just absolutely insane. Again, it's a bit annoying it won't automatic reload unless you're sliding, but it's still a really solid gun to use in the sling. But yeah, this is my sling weapon tier list. So if you're looking to find what guns you should and shouldn't be using in the sling, I would go very much off this list. I feel like this is a very good list to go off of. I think And I think STR is actually the same from when I last made the video. However, a lot of gun changes have been made since I last made that video. So everything else has sort of shifted around quite a bit. SMG is not as strong, which is sad for ballistic mains because SMGs were sort of Ballistic's thing, but it is what it is. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this gave you some clarity on what guns you're going to put in your sling. Let me know what you think in the comments down below to my tier list. If you have anything you agree or disagree with, I would love to know down in the comments below. And thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.